we had to send the Arabs away. But the question in that situation is, why didn't you let them return to their homes? These are civilians. Therein lies the problem.
I think they came in wanting the whole land from the beginning.
That's precisely what it is. This is Amnesty International. It's a non-governmental organization. It's a human rights group. Okay, they did a video a while back after declaring Israel to be an apartheid regime in the month of April in 2021.
This was before.
This was way before. Yeah. Because Israel has been in apartheid for a very long time. Do you know what an apartheid is?
Nelson Mandela.
Good start. Let's watch this Amnesty International video now.
Okay.
Probably the disturbing images of racial segregation between whites and blacks in South Africa, where a regime ruled by a white minority declared themselves officially superiority, then proceeded to dominate them. South Africa's apartheid system officially ended in the mid-1990s, but that doesn't mean apartheid can't happen elsewhere. Here, in Israel and the occupied Palestinians are being forced off their land and out of their homes, separated and segregated by laws, walls, and checkpoints. They live in a constant state of fear and insecurity, and deliberately impoverished. While, on the other hand, Israeli authorities have given the Jewish Israeli population privilege over Palestinians in just about every facet of life. The question is, does this all amount to of apartheid? First, the definition of apartheid. The against humanity of apartheid is perpetrated when particular serious human rights are committed with the purpose of establishing and maintaining a system of domination by one racial group over another and systematically oppressing them. But does this system exist in Israel and the occupied Palestinians?
And there's been a growing debate about whether the situation in Israel and the occupied Palestinian is apartheid. And now is the time for us, as the world's largest human rights organization, to offer up our analysis. Our findings and criticism are directed not at the Jewish people, but at the Israeli state. It's the Israeli state that put in place the policies that implement the laws and the practices that oppress Palestinians.
Well, Israeli leaders have been clear about their intentions from the beginning. In 1948, just before he became the first Prime Minister of Israel, Ben-Gurion visited Lifta and other Palestinian areas near Jerusalem that were completely emptied of Palestinian residents following attacks by Jewish forces.
I do want to mention something here, because this is, you're right, a one-sided conversation from a trusted third party. Having said that, there are a litany of misinformation and cherry-picked points throughout history, and genuine suppression of the truth in terms of historic data that defenders of Israel has engaged in the Western world, especially, and in Israel as well, for a very long time. This is precisely the reason why a lot of people that are educated on the matter might actually arrive at an entirely different conclusion, because the way that this is talking about it is the correct way, is an accurate analysis of the events that unfolded during the Nakba, which means the catastrophe in 1948, when Israel moved on all of the Palestinian villages and basically purged Palestinians from their ancestral homelands, where they lived in, by hundreds of thousands. They moved 750. They moved 750,000 Palestinians from their homes, and basically forced them.
This is 1948.
1948.
So
yes.
just after World War II.
Yes. And it's going to describe that right now, but the way that people who want to defend Israel, I'll just give you the alternative argument. I'll steelman their position as well. Those who are defenders of Israel will say, actually, no, that's not what happened. These Arabs, as a collective, were always angry at the Jews because they had anti-Semitism at their hearts, and they always wanted to, not live alongside Jews because they hate Jews. It's almost like a false notion of anti-Semitism created amongst the Arab population in the minds of defenders of Israel to make it seem as though they have almost a Hitlerian, Nazi style anti-Semitism. They'll even point to a Grand Mufti, a Palestinian Grand Mufti, a religious leader that was actually a colonial religious leader that the British Empire had placed in position of power, but that wasn't ultimately a popular person at all, to be oh, Hitler literally talked to this guy actually, and he's the one who told Hitler to the Jews, right? Which is revisionism, and it's revisionism that was actually repeated by Benjamin Netanyahu, as a matter of fact, saying that the Palestinian Grand Mufti played a prominent role in getting Hitler to be anti-Semitic and do the final solution is unimaginable revisionism. Only Nazis would believe that, which Benjamin Netanyahu is. Anyway, so there are a lot of counters. There are a lot of counter arguments to everything that they're talking about, but this is an accurate assessment of the truth.
Okay.
And if you are unfamiliar with the counter arguments, and if you haven't done the reading, people who are at least propagandists that want to make the truth seem different will be able to effectively wind you down. Okay, we'll be able to effectively make it seem like you're wrong, right? But anyway, let's continue.
He stated, "There are no Arabs, 100% Jews. If we persist, it is quite possible that in the next 6 or 8 months there will be considerable changes in the country, very considerable, and to our advantage." More than 70 years later, then Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu posted on Instagram that Israel is not a state of all its citizens, but rather the nation state of the Jewish people and only them. So, it's no surprise that Israel built a system of racially laws, policies and practices that privilege only Jewish people. And Palestinians, well, Palestinians live there too. They were there before Israel was established. But, as we will explain, they've been trapped for decades in a system that treats them as a lesser, non-Jewish racial group. Before Israel was established in 1948, Palestinians comprised most of the population, around 70%, and owned the vast majority of private land, about 90%, in what was British Mandate Palestine. Jews, many of whom had emigrated from Europe, comprised around 30% of the population, and they and Jewish institutions owned about 6.5% of the land.
The port of Haifa in Palestine lies shattered by and strewn with dead.
In the course of establishing Israel as a Jewish state in 1948, Israeli authorities acted to turn the situation on its head and were responsible for the mass expulsion of Palestinians and the destruction of hundreds of villages, forcing around 800,000 Palestinians out of their homes
here and just took this
and lands. Thousands of Palestinians and Jews were in
the counter to this. The legalese is like, oh, well, that happened. These people were not responsible for it. As a matter of fact, 11,000 Palestinians fought against Nazi Germany, but it doesn't matter. It's besides the point. But basically, this is what settler colonialism is. And ultimately, the way that, like, in Israeli society, the way that these events are explained is totally backwards. Like, oh, it was an Arab war against Jews, and the Jews fought back, so we had to send the Arabs away. But the question in that situation is, why didn't you let them return to their homes? These are civilians. Therein lies the problem.
I think they came in wanting the whole land from the beginning.
That's precisely what it is.
And this is just what it's come down to.
Ultimately, that is the final evolution of Zionism, which is happening currently, unfolding in front of our eyes.
In the context of attacks on civilians during this conflict. Today, there are around 6 million Palestinian refugees who Israel denies the right to return to their homes. After the 1967 war, Israel occupied the Palestinian of the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, and Israel's brutal military rule.
I don't even want to tell you, like, the psychotic that they did during the Nakba from 1947 onwards. Plan Dalit. These are all historical texts that were literally uncovered by Israeli historians, by the way, and ironically, one of the formative Israeli historians basically uncovered it and then changed his position to, yeah, it was ethnic cleansing and it was planned, but it was good. I'm glad that it happened. And the others were like, this was completely unacceptable. What the? One of which is historian Ilan Pappé. Israeli historian Ilan Pappé. He's an award-winning Israeli historian who was an academic in Israel, who left Israel, and I think he like literally gave up his citizenship too. He's like the Avi Shleim, Ilan Pappé, and the last historian that I'm talking about is Benny Morris. Benny Morris is the one who was like, yes, ethnic cleansing happened, but it was good.
I mean, good for for one side, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is one of the many things that they did. The Zionist paramilitaries attacked the village of Deir Yassin. A lot of the stuff that they talked about during October 7 was shit that like Israel had done in Deir Yassin, throwing babies in ovens and things like that.
Sorry, what? Who threw babies in ovens?
I thought Ilan Pappé renounced his citizenship. Maybe I'm wrong. No, Norm is not a part of the group of historians from Israel. Norm is not Israeli. And Norm is an incredible and very accurate chronicler of the fate of the Palestinians post 1948.
Holy moly, dude! This is heavy.
Rule, coupled
so
with the
heavy.
establishment and expansion
Keep
of
going.
illegal Jewish settlements into enclaves, creating further
What was
fragmentation
your question?
and segregation.
Nothing.
All right, well, you're not paying attention.
No, I asked a question of who threw the baby in the oven.
Oh, in Deir Yassin, Zionist paramilitaries,
Yeah.
including like actual paramilitaries that called themselves organizations, like personally, engaged in atrocities in an effort to basically and like let some people live in the villages, in the Palestinian villages that were literally like unguarded. There was not a single person there with like weapons. One of the most like gruesome acts of horror was when these came into the village, and they obviously had a bunch of these people at gunpoint, and there was a baker, and he had this big oven for baking bread, and they took the baker and they told the baker, you have to throw your own son in the oven. The baker refused. So they threw his son in the oven and made the baker watch his son burn alive in the oven. Then they threw the baker in the oven. The only reason why we know about this is because the third person that experienced this, that was on that lineup, escaped. And basically the reason why they let a lot of these people escape in the villages after doing like insane atrocities to them, like rape, straight up like raping them to death, a bunch of people. The reason they would let people escape is so that they wanted the Palestinians to go to other Palestinian villages and say, this is what they did to us, leave when they come. So they would do like some of the earliest aspects of PSYOPs, basically. They would go into like major cities and they would have these big speakers on armored cars. And the speakers would be blasting like machine gun fire and explosion sounds. They didn't actually have they didn't want to use the machine gun fire, whether it was because they just didn't have a lot of resources or whatever. But they basically would surround the city with military and run these like crazy sounds to make people evacuate.
Yeah.
Would basically surround the city so they can only evacuate from one single file line out of one area of the city. And they would obviously never let them return ever again after evacuating the entire city.
That's how they got all the land.
Yeah. They didn't everyone, but they enough people. I think it was 15,000 if I'm not mistaken.
Out of 800K? That's what they said got moved?
No. That's the total number of people that were ethnically displaced.
Oh, okay.
But in terms of like directly, like 15,000 people, but they used the deaths and the lynchings and the rapes to basically scare the 750,000 ethnic Palestinians into leaving. And then they still to this day say, oh, well, they voluntarily left. Okay, they voluntarily want to come back. They would not allow that to happen. They shot a bunch of people that tried to come back to their own farms. And yeah. So now ask Hasan about Turkey and what they do to the Kurds. I mean, I've talked about this quite a bit. But one ironic part about this is that, like, you know, if Israel treated Palestinians in the same way that, like, the Turkish government treats Kurds, which is still horrifying, especially when you look at Kurdish majority areas where the Turkish military literally engages in like military action. Having said that, however, if the Israeli military treated, or the Israeli government treated and offered full-blown citizenship to every single Palestinian person and considered them simply an ethnic minority, but they have the same rights, even though there is still a lot of, this would be declared the greatest human rights achievement of all time. And I don't think there's a single Kurdish person that would disagree with what I'm saying here. Yeah. For the record, Deir Yassin and other massacres were carried out by Irgun and Lihi paramilitaries that were folded into the modern-day IDF by the state. These are not some sort of rogue entities. They're pertinent to the conflict as other entities. Yeah.
The objective? Maintain Jewish-Israeli hegemony and maximize control of land. In the city of Jerusalem, the Israeli official policy is to maintain at least a 60% Jewish majority.
Oh, by the way, Israel supported this.
Now is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, not only to stand within its gates, but also to build the home of your dreams there.
I mean, how did Israel feel about the Holocaust?
So where do all the Palestinians live now?
I don't think they liked it.
3.4 million live outside of
I think
Israel,
there's a
and they
pretty big
occupied
part of the-
mainly in refugee camps in neighboring countries.
I mean, it
Two-
sounds like they're trying to run it back, but in their favor.
Yeah, that actually, what you just described is like literally it plays a very formative role in the Israeli nationalistic mythos. The Holocaust is like, first of all, Israel didn't exist before when the Holocaust was happening. You know that, right?
I don't know anything.
Okay, think about the timeline. 1948.
I'm learning now.
Okay, so this is years
Oh,
after.
how do they feel about it now?
So the Holocaust plays a incredibly important and very instructive role in the building of the Israeli nation state, and it is a part of like the national myth making for Israel. The analysis is that before the Holocaust, there were also literally centuries of pogroms where, blood libel. Everyone, anytime in any Russian village or in Europe or whatever, something bad was happening, they'd be like, oh, it must be the Jews that are doing that. So what would they do? They would go and find all the Jews and kill them or purge them. So Jewish people have a very long history of consistently getting slaughtered
Why?
mercilessly. There was one exception, however.
Yeah.
The Ottoman Empire. Not to blaze myself too much, but the Ottoman Empire was safe haven for Jews. And a lot of Jews actually escaped the Spanish Inquisition and came to the Ottoman Empire and lived in many different parts of the Ottoman Empire, including, but not limited to, historic Palestine. And at the time, it was seen as like a significantly better living experience for Jews in terms of like Europe, in comparison to Europe. But that's besides the point. So what I was saying was, what the fuck was I saying? He doesn't know what that means.
I assume it has to do with Turkey.
No, centuries of pogroms and the Holocaust. So centuries of pogroms and the Holocaust itself was like a enough is enough moment for a lot of people, I think, where some internalized the message behind never again as like, we can never allow this to happen to anyone ever again, which is the correct message. That's the reason why that message exists. And others, namely those who were at the helm of spearheading Israeli society and building this nation, saw that as never again to us. Like just, nobody else. I don't give a we will do it ourselves, actually, even if that's what it takes, but never again to us. So it's the way I think that the Holocaust is viewed is like very complicated in Israeli society, where like there's almost an air of like resentment towards Jews that survived the Holocaust or escaped the Holocaust, where they are seen as like weak by, depending on what level of mania you're operating on, where like there are a lot of hyper right-wing Israeli nationals who consider like Jews during the Holocaust to be weak. They didn't fight back. They didn't fight back enough, which is, again, ahistorical, because they did fight back. That's the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, which is analogous to, October 7 in many respects. But, and that they did not know that they were being sent to death camps. Many Jews did not know that they were being sent to death camps. But the idea is like, the idea is that they were weak Jews and we will never be like them. We will be strong Jews. And I think that's part of the reason why Israeli society is so militant, so hyper militant. One, because it's a settler colony in the middle of a region where it's like actively purged the ethnic population. So obviously there's going to be a lot of resentment towards that. But beyond that, it's the genuine, I think like a quite reasonable assessment of the situation as if you parse through Jewish history. Like, it is understandable, bro. If your people are getting constantly everywhere and being made to be the only reason why bad things are happening, then yeah, you're going to be like, holy, we cannot have this happen again. We got to be like super militant. And I think that complicates things a little bit if you're Jewish and learning about Jewish history, or if you're like a little bit interested about, Jewish history. I think that is what complicates things, because there is an air of legitimacy to the generational trauma that Jewish people have experienced.
Yeah.
The problem is that generational trauma has caused Jews to be at the forefront of every single civil justice, social justice movement, civil liberty movement, including the abolition of apartheid South Africa. So while Israel was in support of apartheid South Africa, Jews played a prominent role in South African the fight against the South African apartheid.
Why was Israel for it?
Well, because they had their own apartheid and they wanted nukes. I think that was what it was, right? Didn't they get like they developed their nuclear capabilities by collaborating with South Africa? I think. Am I mistaken on that?
So Israel has nukes,
Yeah.
and we still give them weapons. Why?
Well, because they have nukes.
Oh no! Oh no! One of your viewers just typed "N-word."
0.5 million
N-word.
Palestinians live in Israel and East Jerusalem, restricted to enclaves that make up around 3% of the entire area.
I remember
3
the meme.
million Palestinians live in the occupied West Bank, but are only allowed to access 40% of the land to
So can
live
these
and work.
Palestinians, if they wanted
The
to, like,
rest of
travel
the
to
area
Europe, could
is
they
for the
leave?
Jewish Israeli settlers
Yes.
only.
Some.
2 million are trapped.
So depends. The ones in are heavily restricted in their movement. The ones in the West Bank are also heavily restricted in their movement. Israel does something really tough where if you leave the West Bank as a Palestinian resident in the West Bank, they make it so that it's virtually impossible for you to come back. If you have residence in America as a Palestinian, they still make it really hard for you to go there and visit, but you can go and visit because they're like, yeah, you're going to off and you're going to go back to America or wherever you're from. But if you are a Palestinian resident of the West Bank and you leave the West Bank, they make it like as difficult as possible to make sure that you can't come back into the West Bank.
Man, this is just insane. I'll be honest, man. It sounds like this whole area needs a nice reset, you know?
Okay, bro, but you know,
Give it to me. Let me start my Palminism there.
okay, but you have to remember, like,
What? I'll
these
start. it.
innocent people didn't do
Yeah, they can join me. It's great.
like
You have the dark matter yet?
when you learn this stuff, your argument shouldn't be like, oh man, it's just too complicated for me. Like, let God sort it out, because
Oh no.
God doesn't end up sorting it out. Israel sorts it out. You know what I mean?
No, not
To the
God.
Strip, one of the
Dark
most
matter.
densely populated areas in the
Supercomputer.
world. Fragmentation of the Palestinian society and the dispossession of their lands are key pillars of Israel's apartheid system to maintain domination and control. But there's more. The unequal structure of nationality and status, restrictions on freedom of movement, use
Oh
of
my God,
military
you.
rule, denial of right to political participation or the right to peaceful protest, and cruel separation of families all add to the complex system that we see today.
The world in general hasn't woken up to the fact that there is an entrenched system of oppression against Palestinians across Israel and the occupied Palestinians, wherever they may live, by the Israeli state. It's a system that's been put in place and maintained for decades, and it's that system that is the root cause of so many of the misery and the suffering that millions of Palestinians face on a daily basis.
One way to understand this segregation and oppression is to look at the ID system.
What's the ID system?
Jewish Israelis have only one ID card, with a status that grants them the rights to live almost anywhere they wish in the country. They can move freely with access to healthcare and vast resources.
Okay.
Palestinians, on the other hand, have 4 types of ID cards, if any at all. The kind of ID card you are given determines the level of rights you can enjoy and controls where you can go and what you can do. If you hold a green card, you are subject to military rule. And if you have a green card with an address, it means you're trapped in a 365 kilometer square open-air prison under Israeli military blockade in place since 2007. Israel controls what goes in and what goes out, from children's toys to medical supplies. 90%
They literally banned, at times, they call it putting the Palestinians on a diet. And they have banned, at times, things such as cookies and pasta, only for the American government to go, why are you banning pasta? And then they go, okay, we'll let them have pasta.
Dude.
Yeah.
of the people have no access to safe drinking water, 47% are unemployed, 56% live in poverty. Palestinians with an ID are forbidden from going to Jerusalem in the West Bank, even if they have family there. Some people in the West Bank are considered to live there illegally and can be deported to Gaza if found by the army, even if they have been in the West Bank for decades. Whereas, if you hold a green card which has a West Bank address, then you live here. This green card means you can live within specific
Also, if you're an idiot and you only regurgitate whatever the Israel says for its justifications for like some former Twitch, now Kick streamers, you will look like an absolute baboon in front of knowledgeable people when you turn around and say, oh, they banned sugar, like cookies. Okay, they banned cookies and pasta because they're making that out of it.
Is that possible?
No, it's not. It's already processed. It's inside of a cookie. You can't, unless Palestinians have figured out something that no one else has, alchemy of that sort. Okay, you can't just use cookies as making material.
Listen, they would have figured that out if it was possible. Yeah. Ted Kaczynski had an IQ of like 175.
Yeah, if you read his writings,
I
quite the idiot, in my opinion.
What he said about technology wasn't far off.
Okay, but that's it. That's like kind of the only thing.
Everything else was crazy, but he hit the nail on the head about the society and technology. But
it was also insane, bro.
Amen.
Enclaves surrounded by illegal Israeli settlements. And there's a separation wall and fences built around you since 2002, which Palestinians call the Apartheid Wall. It's 8 meters high in places and 700 kilometers long. That's twice the height of the Berlin Wall and more than 4 times its length. 80% of it is built inside the West Bank, occupying even more Palestinian land.
So they actually built a wall.
There are separate roads for Israelis and Palestinians, hundreds of checkpoints scattered throughout, not to mention the 54 years of occupation which has devastated the lives of millions of Palestinians. Palestinians with a West Bank ID can travel to Gaza or East Jerusalem, but only if they receive a permit from the military to do so. This blue ID is for Palestinians in East Jerusalem. They can travel to the occupied West Bank as well as to Israel, but they are not citizens of Israel. They have only been granted a residency status.
So
this means that they cannot vote in Israeli national elections, and if they leave East Jerusalem for too long, for example, to study or work abroad...
It's the only... Yeah, see, this is what I was talking about. They have their residency revoked. You don't get it. Like, they don't give it to you. They don't offer it to you unless you're literally already in East Jerusalem, which is that Israel literally has... All right, I'll ask you this much. Would it shock you if you were to find out that Israel has opened in the laws direct goals of what the population percentage of a certain area needs to look like? Well, after finding out about all this, probably not. But like, if I were to tell you, 4 hours ago that like, did you know that Israel has an interest in maintaining a certain percentage of like the Jewish population in an area?
I can't answer now because I saw earlier they said they wanted 60% or something.
Yes,
I saw that.
Yeah,
I remember.
Yeah, it is literally a part of the overarching goal of the state is like, we have to keep this area 60% Jew.
This sounds
as a Canadian citizen, I'm not allowed to fly into Tel Aviv. They would put me on a flight to go back. I'm only allowed to into the West Bank through Jordan, and I can't go to Jerusalem either without a visa from them, which they normally deny. Yeah. If you're a Palestinian, like, if you're an Israeli citizen, if you're an Israeli Jew, right? Because Israel has its own demographics, which is really funny because like Israel is relatively diverse in terms of like the actual ethnic backgrounds, because there's plenty of Arab Jews as well, right? Like if I were to put a lineup and be like, which one is Palestinian, which one's Israeli, you would not be able to tell them apart. They all look diverse. Like there's white ones, and then there's brown ones, and even black ones, right? And
black what?
Jews and also Arabs. Yeah, there's Ethiopian Jews, bro.
They look like me?
I mean, you're light skinned enough, but no. I mean, Ethiopians look kind of. I mean, I guess kind of.
Okay.
Could Nick be Ethiopian, chat?
They're probably darker.
And the same goes for Arabs. Anyway.
Yeah.
Israeli society has created because of its ethno-state status. The Israeli government has created a designation. There's 2 tiers. You are either an Israeli citizen, like full-blown citizen, which means you're Jewish, or you are a non-Jew living inside of Israel. We call that the Palestinian citizens of Israel, the 1948ers, the people that were there that were offered citizenship at the time. The only thing that makes them different from like full-blown Israeli Jews is that they're just not Jewish, that they're either Christian or Muslim. Now, here's where things get interesting, okay? There are Arab Jews. Itamar Ben-Gvir is the Ministry of like Interior Defense or whatever, like the National Police guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's from Iraq. He's Arab, but he's Jewish. So even if you're Arab, you still get slotted into Jewish as your ethnic and religious background. And what's really interesting about this process is that if you are an Israeli Jewish citizen, right, regardless of where you're from, and you want to marry a Palestinian Muslim in the West Bank, you can't bring the Palestinian Muslim from the West Bank into Israel. Even if you get married, you have to live in the West Bank now. You can, your citizenship only goes down. Like you only get level down. You can't level up.
Okay, that is
I've had a conversation with a literal Arab, with a Jewish Arab from Israel, teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And in the conversation, I tried to explain to him that like he's technically Arab as well, or Itamar Ben-Gvir is Arab. And he got mad at me. He was like, no, they're not Arab. They reserve the term only for non-Jews. Calling an Israeli Jew an Arab is like calling them a slur there. Yeah.
Okay, Hasan.
Yeah.
Help me here.
What?
What's an Arab? I don't understand what you're saying.
Arabs are people of a specific ethnic background from Arab countries, like predominantly Arab countries.
Right. Okay. So where you're born at, it's not
that speak Arabic.
So you can be Jewish if you're born in an Arabic country.
Yeah. There were plenty of Jewish people that used to live in Arabic countries. Some of them, some of them were literally after Israel was developed as a nation state. Some of them were purged from the Arabic nations because they had their own pan-Arabic or their own nationalist movements in their development of the nation state. So they literally were forcing them out. Or Israel also personally, like in the case of Iraq, was making it so that they would do false flag attacks like synagogues. Israel would a synagogue in Iraq to be like, see, they hate you. You need to come to Israel now.
So let me get this straight. If you're an Arabic and if you're from help, you said if you say you're an Arabic Jew, it's a slur.
Jews in Israel that are from Arabic backgrounds, okay,
they will
that come from countries that Arabic countries, do not consider themselves to be Arab. You can only be Arab inside of Israel if you are non-Jew. If you are not a Jewish person, you can be, if you're Christian or if you're Muslim, under Israeli societal designation, you are Arab. But if you're Jewish, you're not. Israel has actually a separate designation for Arab Jews. Jews of Arabic origin and Arab designation. It's called it's the Mizrahi.
Yeah, this is a lot to take in one day, guys. I apologize. This is just a lot to take in because I'm trying to get everything plain as day.
It's all good.
Because I'm just getting confused here.
If you are an Israeli Jew of Arab descent, you have a separate designation under like Israeli society. As a Jewish person, you are still considered a Jewish person. If they ask you like what your background is, there's a separate designation for it. It's called Mizrahi.
And is that frowned upon?
No.
Okay.
Well, originally when they were first coming into Israel, they were frowned upon. There was a lot of issues with integration of Mizrahi Jews into Israeli society. I don't want to really get into that, but like they used to call them like they considered them barbarians. Like, oh, you need to learn how to. There was definitely a Ashkenazi supremacist undertone to a lot of this stuff, and there still kind of is in Israel. Ashkenazis are Eastern European and white Jews, many of which that live in the United States of America as well. So like. There is definitely colorism in Israel as well. They did a sterilization operation on Ethiopian Jews specifically because they claimed it was so that they would stop birth defects, but it was actually so that they would stop having children. Because they wanted to continue the Western European style nature of Israel. Israel also engaged in ecological colonialism, where they would like raise all the Arab villages, change the villages to sound more Israeli in name, like Hebrew. They also did like really unique. I mean, Hebrew as a language was basically revitalized. Like it was a dead language ultimately. Most Jews like spoke Yiddish or whatever the language that they spoke in their nation of origin. And then they literally single-handedly in this nation-state project revived a dead language, brought it to the forefront. Unfortunately, some of the consequences were like the desecration and destruction of Yiddish because of some of the similar, cultural aspects of Yiddish that I explained. Yeah. Or cultural remnants of like the way that some of Israeli society internalize the Holocaust or how they look at the Holocaust. But
I have heard of the word Yiddish, chat. Okay.
Yeah.
Someone said Nick hasn't heard of the word.
it's not entirely accurate. I mean, I think
heard
it's
about
like, yeah, it was almost an entirely liturgical language like Latin. I think that like if Israel wasn't such a bloody permanent occupation, settler colonial occupation, like there is a lot of phenomenal achievements that you could point to, including literally like the revitalization of a language such as Hebrew in such a short period of time. I think that the problem is it came alongside this destruction, but in terms of like the ecological that I was referencing, they literally would raise these villages, change the language or change the name of the villages to like, you know, either biblical or not even biblical, but like they would change it to like Hebrew words. But then also they would destroy the olive trees. Olive trees take hundreds of years to like grow and bear fruit as efficiently as they can in Palestine. And they would burn the olive trees down and they would plant European style trees. They would plant trees that like resembled the European fauna. And yeah, like pine trees. And obviously pine trees like exist in Lebanon too, but like basically they changed the ecology of the entire area, or not the fauna, the flora, sorry. And what ended up happening is like now they have a higher likelihood of having like wildfires because it's like such a dry area that it's not supposed to.
They shouldn't have done it then.
Yeah. Anyway,
so
yeah, they engage in ecological fascism.
I have another dumb question.
Yeah.
For like Gaza and like the West Bank, do they have internet?
Yeah. So there's a couple different processes. One now former HasanAbi head who was ex-Israeli state.
Excuse me. One of your viewers was executed by
a bunch of my viewers, yes.
Shut the up.
What do you mean shut the fuck up? He was also a TikToker. He also had a TikTok. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. There's a video of him. There's
dude.
a video of him explaining the process of using eSIMs.
And they
yeah, in an internet cafe.
Oh, brother, should I not be on this stream? Oh my god.
You're not in Gaza.
Yeah, but oh my god. This is wild, Hasan. This whole thing is crazy to me, man.
It's been tough bringing this up, but I don't even want to I don't even want to talk about it. It makes me really sad to think about, but his name is Meadow. Anyway, he was a TikToker and he loved growing plants. He had like a miniature greenhouse.
You don't have to get into it if it's sad.
Anyway,
please don't.
The point is, he had a video where he talks about like how they get internet, where they go to the Egyptian border and they have eSIMs.
Yeah.
And they like put the phone up so that he could pirate videos and then, you know, watch American movies and TV.
So he would get cell service from like from Egypt.
From an eSIM from Egypt, yeah.
Okay, so they don't have internet. They have to. They have to go get it their own way.
Yeah, Israel controls like the telecommunications as well. Like they would routinely blow up. He thinks they kill him because he watches you. No, he did. They didn't kill him because he watches me. They killed him because he's just a Palestinian, and you know, they don't care.
Oh my god.
Anyway, but yeah, basically they control internet access. They'll blow like telecommunication centers. Like they'll blow up cell towers and stuff every now and then to force a blackout. In the early stages of they would just like blow up the cell towers to do a complete communication blackout so that people couldn't get the word out about what was going on. But nowadays they don't even feel the need to do that because people just don't care. Like so many people have died and Americans don't care. Israel only offers justification for the people that if it becomes a major news story in the West too. That's the other thing. Like World Central Kitchen, led by Jose Andres, American chef, very famous, Barack Obama's favorite chef. World Central Kitchen was literally like Jose Andres of World Central Kitchen was like defending Israel in the early months of October, being like, Israel has a right to defend itself. He was like on a Spanish parliament member who was saying like Israel does not have a right to destroy Palestinian lives like this. Stop it. He was like, you know, critically defending Israel and stuff. So this guy is World Central Kitchen, right? Yes, he's from Spain. I know. But he's like very famous in America. Shut up. Anyway, he's done a lot of good stuff around the world. So he collaborates with the Israeli government. The Israeli government's like, oh, this will be good PR for us if we get this famous Spanish chef who is a Zionist himself to go and like deliver food. So the World Central Kitchen basically operates in a similar capacity to UNRWA. Oh my God, I can't even begin to explain what UNRWA is to you. Never mind, I'm not even going to get into the Refugee Relief Works Agency. So they go and they hire Palestinians and they try to use like Palestinian kitchens. They try to use the Palestinian food. Like if they go to an area that is impacted, they try to hire the people there. So it's like double aid. You know what I mean? They give them money and they, they give them money and they use their own logistical supply chains. Anyway, it's a wonderful organization.
Yeah.
It is also comprised of Westerners, like Americans, British people, Australian people. They go down there.
Yeah.
World Central Kitchen was in collaboration with the Israeli government when they were offering humanitarian aid to the Palestinians on the ground. There's a process called deconfliction. It's like a military term that it's like a military term that is used like when you're coordinating your movement in a war zone so they don't leave you.
Sure.
Right? Ambulances do this as well. Palestinian Red Crescent does this with the Israeli government. They get all the time, but they're Palestinians, so that doesn't really matter to the rest of the world. But World Central Kitchen was engaging in deconfliction with the Israeli military, and they were going through the expected route. The Israeli they call it a rogue brigade, but it was just like any other brigade because it's a zone. Triple tapped that convoy and executed 7 World Central Kitchen humanitarian aid workers. This was a major news story for a week.
Including the guy from Spain?
No, not Jose Andres. He's still alive. But he changed his attitude about Israel quite dramatically after that experience where he was like, what the fuck are you doing? You're just my friends. But only after that, he, changed his tune on Israel. Not that it matters because nothing came of it. No changes were made. The people that engaged in the act got barely a slap on the wrist.
Dude.
Yeah.
Is that them?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Israel slaughters Americans. Israel slaughters people from Australia, Poland, USA, and Canada, UK. They like UK vets.
Are they doing this on purpose so people just be like, you know what, I'm not going to help anymore?
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah. What argument do you make to people who don't wish to believe in empirical facts just because who's giving the facts, as well as to inform people that are only taking verbal information just as worse as ignoring other information? Is there any hope to turn these people back to journalists or news outlets who give these facts? I don't know. If someone, and there are plenty of people like this because of living in the post 9/11 universe where like if you're Muslim, they automatically declare you an enemy combatant in their eyes. A lot of people hear me speak on this stuff and they're like, well, your name is Hasan. Of course you're biased. You love this Muslim. They don't understand that I just see the humanity of all people.
Got it.
They think that I have a special place for the Palestinian population because of my Muslim background. And then they double down and follow up with that line of bigotry and say, oh, it's because you're anti-Semitic too. Anyway, oh yeah, here's the UN agency had to suspend operations after a car was hit by gunfire at an Israeli checkpoint, the World Food Program. You can see it right there, the badge says. Yeah.
And so when these
also notice, okay,
what do they say though when they get accused of
notice
this?
the way that like here I'll give you another example of manufacturing consent. The way that these guys, the way that Western media, the Telegram group, no, I don't want to. This is a different incident from World Central Kitchen. This is a different UN humanitarian aid group.
You told me a story about earlier when with the cops that were lining up. Like they seem to do this all the time.
So yeah. So here's the thing. Do you notice something weird about this article headline? When you see this headline, doesn't it kind of make you feel like the gunfire could be coming from anyone?
Yeah, because it's hit by random gunfire.
Yeah, this is what is known as passive voice. News outlets in the United States of America and also in the Western world in general will apply this technique called passive voice. You would never, like during 9/11, it would be akin to writing like airplane collision with World Trade Center causes 3,000 to perish. They wouldn't say that. Right. Attacked the World Trade Center is the headline. Right. And it is a way to make it seem like whenever a cop, someone in America, or whenever Israel or an American ally shoots at or does something illegal to an American enemy.
Yep.
The way that like Western media tries to, put a, manicure the story and manufacture consent by manicuring the story and massaging it.
What consent? Consent to get shot?
No, manufacturing consent is like you're giving consent. Like you're reading this and you're like, Oh, it could be
Oh,
anybody
I
that
see,
did it.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Okay,
guess
okay.
like Israel
Sorry, I get it.
might not have done it. It's a way to take the edge off. Basically, they do this all the time.
But why? Why not just be like what? Why?
Consent in this circumstance is approval. Like
Right.
to give tacit endorsement.
Who owns
and
the
approval.
Guardian?
I don't know. Some rich British guy.
I'm just curious at why like soften it.
The reason why Western newspapers soften these sorts of actions is because it's not because it's like owned by a singular individual. It's because the goal of these institutions is to do propaganda that align with the interests of their own state. That's why they do it. It's not like an individual that is engaging in propaganda because they like are personally invested in Israel. In some instances, they might be like literally invested in Israel, and like their portfolio has investments in Israel, right? Like that's one aspect of the story, but like usually they do this specifically to make it seem like Israel's actions are not.
Even the LA Times actually said UCLA cancels classes after counter-protesters attack pro-Palestinian camp.
This was actually an interesting instance where mainstream media basically said counter-protesters, pro-Israeli counter-protesters, attacked the pro-Palestinian camp. But watch what happens quickly.
Got mainstream media being like, yeah, listen up, big dog. You guys f***ed up a little bit.
Dismantle the pro-Palestinian camp.
Wait, check out the LA Times headline now, much more ambiguous. No, dude, are you serious? After protests at UCLA, UC president launches investigation into response.
Why'd they change it?
They changed it because it was too anti-Israel. In real time, we watched it happen. They were like, all right, well, you know, maybe the first headline wasn't great. We should...
They definitely...
Yeah, look. Yeah. Gunfire wounds dozens in hospital encircled by Israeli tanks. Who did it?
They definitely know who you are.
Who did it, bro? Who did it? Gunfire wounds dozens in hospital? Like as though this is a naturally occurring phenomenon, you know? It's just how it works.
Bro, this whole thing is just honestly horrifying.
Yeah. And I mean, they do this for a lot of, it's not just for like Israel, you know? Whenever there is capital interest, you will always have similar things happen.
So I got a question.
What?
So when you see an article like this, what you probably do is look into it more to see what actually happened, right? Is that how it works?
Yeah.
Because the average person will see his article and move on with their day.
Yeah, and that's the informed person. The average person doesn't know or give a fuck about any of this. But the informed population that want to learn about it will read these articles and will, you know, their takeaway will be whatever the article wants you to think.
Like an LSF thread.
I don't know why you would compare it to LSF in that regard, but I guess it's correct.
Because people read the titles and just assume that's what happened.
Yeah, you're right. That's not wrong. And
holy man, like you got to put in a lot of effort if you really want to know what's going on.
yeah, it's not easy.
It's not easy.
And that's why I also consistently try to tell people that are like newcomers in this community, like everything you've heard about me has a very specific purpose. It is to sully my reputation. To
I
make
always
sure
defend
that,
you, by the way, in the morning.
To make sure that, I know. To make sure that like you don't come in here with a clear mind or a clear conscience and a level of charitability. Your impact in here is supposed to be uncharitable, so that you don't listen to what I have to say, and you've already automatically declared me someone who is like biased against your
cry
interest,
yourself to sleep at night.
and it's someone who is like sinister. I'm motivated by the change that I might. I'm motivated by the change that I might actually create.
I know this stuff's cooked because I talked to my dad about this once, and the things that he was saying blew my mind. I'm like, Dad, I can't believe you said this.
Thousands of others that watch, that
especially
learn
with like the drops, like when they were dropping the stuff. It was crazy.
Your videos on the Lebanon pager attack, yeah. Remember when Israel blew up pagers in Lebanon?
That was recently.
Yeah, like 7 days ago. Israel has since 800 people in Lebanon
with pagers.
No, with direct campaigns. But at the time, they like I think 11 with the pagers, including 2 children, right? And they maimed up like 3,000 people on top of that. And the media covered it as like this phenomenal instance of espionage against a scary enemy combatant. They blew up civilian communications devices after infiltrating a supply chain, not knowing who ended up with those fucking pagers at all. And yet, of course, a bunch of people that were civilians in the process. You can't even enemy combatants when they're not in war anyway. That's still a war regardless. It was a war after a war. It was a double war. It was an act of... And that's precisely what it did. It caused psychological trauma to the civilian population that was worried about their household goods. They were like, is my Is my toaster going to explode next? That's what happened.
Oh my God.
That is an active. The media literally covered it as though it was actually a phenomenal tactical instance of Israeli espionage. And a lot of people don't actually scratch the surface. They just look at that and they go, yeah, you know what? This is great. Yeah. 4-year-old Lebanese girl Naya Ghazi was among the 14 in Israel today. Her body was recovered several hours later from under the rubble.
Thank you.
I mean, we're not going to see her blow up, are we, or anything like that? Okay, please.
No, this was this was the rubble when they started.
Oh my God, dude.
Yeah.
This is heavy stuff, man.
Yeah.
Chat, you be here all days listening to this guy, huh? This stuff is not for the faint of heart. It really isn't.
Yeah. So, you know, it is what it is, I guess.
It is what it is. And this is why you like to play basketball, because that's where you can just be free.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it now.
If the enemy is facts, the only way to win is by attacking the messenger. Yeah, that's exactly. There were media correspondents that called the attack awesome. So many people. Like,
why would that be awesome if you're blowing up civilians with pagers?
Because it's the enemy. They're enemies. They're Arabs. And the Arabs that die as collateral damage is simply just like Arabs that shouldn't have been in the way. Okay? That's what it is. That's how dehumanization works. This is also, yeah, this is why a lot of people despise American foreign policy, like absolutely hate American foreign policy.
Man.
Watching churches get during Christmas really me up. Hard to enjoy things when you know stuff is happening. Yeah, Israel was doing that. There were Palestinian churches. Anyway, the craziest part of it is that they say these guys are human shields. That's like the Israeli propaganda for it. They're like, oh, well, they're human shields. They're in the way of our...
You know what makes you kind of wonder? How much of like, after like 9/11, the stuff that I was told as American citizens was just not true?
What do you mean? A lot of it. Why did we invade Afghanistan?
I don't know.
Why did we invade Iraq?
The bad guys were there.
Yeah. They hadn't... Brother, 17 of the 19 hijackers were Saudi.
I know.
Why did we not invade Saudi Arabia and just went to random countries instead? Now, for Afghanistan, you could say, oh, they were holding Osama bin Laden. Okay, turns out he was in Pakistan anyway, which is, again, next to the Pakistani military training facility. He was living there. But regardless, when he was in Afghanistan, we had the opportunity to extract him without invading Afghanistan, but we invaded anyway.
Do you like George W. Bush?
No.
What about when he dodged those shoes?
That was unfortunately one of those instances where you hate hearing about someone who is worthy of so much more worse things, but he just got good reflexes in that time.
Did you see him tell a security guard to back off when the second shoe was coming?
No.
He did. He told a security, I got this. I'm going to dodge this shoe. That's all I know. Dude, that's...
Yeah.
Whew, man.
They lied about WMDs in Iraq. They were like, oh, they have, WMDs. We got to go invade Iraq. Iraq was even less involved. Iraq was even less involved than Afghanistan was, and Afghanistan wasn't even involved at all.
Dude, life is just, it can be quite sometimes.
Yeah.
And I'm over here just enjoying my Veronica Khalil every morning.
But here's how this works.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bush rejects Taliban offer to hand bin Laden.
Excuse me?
9:30 p.m. update. Taliban demand evidence of bin Laden's guilt. Second week of airstrike starts. Taliban urges U.S. to halt.
They were going to hand him over?
Yeah, dude.
Didn't it take us 10 years to find this guy? And Barack was like, we got him.
Don't even get me started on... Osama bin Laden was a known asset.
I know.
And even before, there were plenty of people who did not like him and were actually against him amongst the Mujahideen, not the Taliban, but other groups in the Mujahideen in Afghanistan. On 9/10, they assassinated the guy who wanted to give America, warned America about Osama bin Laden. But yeah, they rejected the Taliban offer to hand bin Laden, and they said, we don't negotiate with...
Okay, this might be a loaded question. I'm learning everything for the first time. Everything seems new to me. Was bin Laden behind 9/11?
Yes.
Okay. So not everything I know is a lie.
No.
Okay. All right.
But bin Laden was before 9/11.
All right.
Osama bin Laden for many, many years got positive coverage even from the Western news. Did you know that?
No, I'd never heard of the guy before that happened.
Let me show you the tape.
No, oh no. There's a tape?
No, it's not a tape.
Didn't he play Counter-Strike?
I think so. He was also in the hentai, I think. Hold on. Osama bin Laden. Was it in which newspaper was it in? Guardian? Revolutionary USSR.
Wait, was it? Oh my God.
Center for Public Integrity, how the U.S. helped midwife The 910 guy is Ahmed Shah Massoud, but I'm not talking about that. Does anyone have the news article? You know what I'm talking about? The article about, not the Mujahideen, but like about Osama bin Laden specifically. Trained by the CIA, by the way. And so were the, I mean, they knew of him. He was a known asset. Oh, this is that's the title of the article. Hold on. Gopnik Makbliat. Oh, this in the newspaper, this also had a photo of Osama bin Laden. Anti-Soviet warrior puts his army on the road to peace. The Saudi businessman who recruited Mujahideen now uses them for large-scale building projects in Sudan. Robert Fisk met him in Al-Matiq. 1990.
This is
here's the photo, I think. Yeah, here it is. There he is. All 6'7" of old glory.
He was,
right there.
He was 6'7"?
Yeah, he's tall as hell, bro.
Did he play basketball?
He should have.
Dude, the world's insane. Just
yeah.
I'm getting cold shivers.
Yeah. Yeah, he was. Austin is yelling from the background and said, "You'll never enjoy the national anthem as much again."
I mean, which one at this point? Me and Felix.
July 4th has never been celebrated the same since I started watching.
Oh no!
It's almost like I heard he had a couple slam dunks back in September of 2001.
No, dude.
He was playing with the wrong Rockets.
Dude, stop. Oh my goodness, dude.
So here's the thing. The reason why you are completely not knowledgeable of all these affairs is because it would make you go crazy if you constantly thought about this. And the entire purpose of the media is to basically dull your sensibilities into not knowing any of this. What I have to deal with is something that's worse. You are fantastic. You're charitable. You're curious. You're interested in this intellectually, and you're not going to like immediately be resistant to what I have to say. But the average person that constantly gets all of this propaganda,
like,
for example, sometimes in the media, like, an anti-Semitic already has a resilience to what I have to say. Jewish community and sometimes will go for the other day and the other week, where and they will defend the Israeli actions. That's what pisses me off more than anything else. That are not knowledgeable come in here and repeat talking points that they heard from some YouTuber who is also not knowledgeable on the issue, but they're also like. Now the person is repeating a person that didn't already have like the full scope of the story and are like not even remembering the talking points correctly. And they're just pissing me off because they're so smarmy and annoying about it. They're like, and also on top of that, they, especially in this instance, they'll also package it with like a ton of Islamophobic sentiment to be like, this morning someone came in and was like, I heard your pager is beeping. Like, that's like a threat. You know what I mean? He's saying like,
oh my God,
you know, you're Hezbollah and you're going to blow up. Like, you know, I hope the American government do. That's what that means. And it's very frustrating because like, if you interrogate that person and try to figure out where they came to this conclusion, they have no knowledge whatsoever because it takes nothing to just be like, you're a dirty, you know, sand N-word and you're going to blow up. It takes nothing to say that, you know?
Well, why would they say that? Where's the anger coming from?
Well, you weren't here this morning when I talked about it, but that anger comes from the fact that that doesn't have health care, that is fully aware of the hurt and harm caused to him by his own government. He at least experiences the impacts of it. He knows that his life is never going to be as good as his parents' generation. He knows he's never going to have a home. He knows he's never going to have a job. He's never going to or have a meaningful job. He's never going to be able to retire. So that makes him really angry.
He's frustrated.
And in that anger and frustration, he lashes out at whoever can hear him. And it makes him feel powerful in that moment to be like, this guy, this Twitch streamer, he has a lot of money. He's hot. People listen to him. But, you know, I'm going to piss him off because he's lower than me, because he's a dirty Muslim defending other dirty Muslims that are getting brutalized by the American and Israeli militaries. That's where that anger comes from. That's where it comes from. You know? The notion that someone will look at you and because you're black, assume automatically that you are worse than they are, that you're lower, you're inferior to them. That kind of like, that kind of white supremacist sentiment.
I have dealt with that in the past.
Someone said Netanyahu's dead. No, he's not, bro. Shut up.
You want to know how I defeated in the past?
No way. How?
So people used to call me like the N-word and stuff back in middle school. But then I realized I could say something to them that hurt them even more.
What?
I would just call them poor.
Okay.
It was a defense mechanism.
I feel you. I understand, I guess. For real, HasanAbi argue with you dead ass 2 hours just to finally say, okay, well, maybe it's possible I don't have all the facts. Yeah. Oh, yeah, LBJ.
What do you say?
LBJ,
Can I see the
Lyndon
quote?
Big Johnson said, if you can convince the lowest white man he's better than the best colored man, he won't notice you're picking his pocket. Hell, give him something to look down to. He'll empty his pockets for you.
The president said this?
Yeah.
He said this.
Yeah, he had a fact, bro. What do you mean? He's unstoppable. He had a fact, and he really wanted to do Vietnam.
But like, isn't this kind of insulting towards white people?
Oh, woe is me, bro.
No, I'm just saying. And like,
I mean, it is, but who gives it?
no, I'm saying, but it's like people. He's speaking the truth. Then
Yeah.
I've never heard this quote before. That's interesting.
Nixon said worse. Yeah, but he didn't say that about white people. Nixon said that about black people, Jews.
Was Nixon
Dog, which American president wasn't?
Barack?
Barack Obama called Black Lives Matter protesters uppity thugs.
Who?
Barack Obama called Black Lives Matter protesters uppity thugs.
Oh, was he joking?
No, he wasn't joking.
Better question. Who's not?
Didn't he also do the pull your pants up too? I feel like he did that. He did that too. Who was not?
Just who in general?
I don't know. Barack Obama loved melting black and brown people overseas with drones, dude. He blew up a goddamn hospital. He even Italian doctors.
Wait, that?
Yeah, bro, Kunduz.
I don't know what that is.
He blew up a hospital in Kunduz.
And for fun? I don't understand.
The hospital was a Doctors Without Borders hospital, so he had to apologize for it because like he white people too. He blew up weddings.
I've raised money for them before.
What?
Doctors Without Borders?
Yeah.
I've raised money for those before.
They're sick. I love Doctors Without Borders. Goddamn commie doesn't want. Yeah, he had to apologize.
An error with fatal consequences. Barack Obama has apologized to Doctors Without Borders for the U.S. bombing.
Right? Yeah, because white people. How many hospitals they blow up that they never apologize for because there were no white people there? This happened to be.
Who's the guy on the left?
I think he's. I'm assuming the French.
That mistakenly hit the NGO in Kunduz. 22 people.
I actually don't know.
President Obama spoke by telephone with Doctors Without Borders International President Dr.
The German president,
Joanne Liu, to apologize and express his condolences for the MSF staff and patients who were then injured when a U.S. military mistakenly struck an MSF field hospital in Kunduz. After completing that call, the president telephoned.
Yeah. Anyway.
Did all he say was I'm sorry? Did he do anything?
He hit the wrong location. It has nothing to do with white people. Lol W. Stop it. No, dog. No, you idiot. He apologized because white people were. How many wrong locations the American government target over and over again with no apologies? This is what I mean. This doesn't know the facts. I do. He misunderstood me, and now it's like my problem. You know what I mean? He's making his problem my issue. He's making it the issue of 35,000 people that are watching right now, and it's very annoying. You know?
Jeez.
My old look. My boomer black chatter. Bro, telling young black men to pull their pants up ain't, brother. It's saying be respectful to yourself, not having your ass hang out.
I mean, to be fair, my mother also told me to pull my pants up.
Isn't she also conservative, kind of?
No, my mom rants about Donald Trump all the time.
I know, but like, that doesn't change the dynamic. You can still be conservative and be anti-Trump.
Well, no, she's voting for the blue team.
The Democrats? Come on, you know
Listen, she's just super religious and she doesn't like.
Okay,
awesome
there
show.
you go.
Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Isn't it quite ignorant being I know more than you? Yeah, it is. If I was not fully aware of the situation and also knew that that person didn't know what he was talking about. So in this situation, it's actually not ignorant. It's addressing ignorance. But you are hyper-focused on the aesthetics of it, okay? But you assume people don't? Yes, because in a situation where I have the full scope of knowledge and I'm talking about a specific aspect of Barack Obama's drone program where one of the unintentional targets was a hospital that was a Doctors Without Borders hospital, which was unceremoniously and uniquely apologized for as opposed to the litany of others that Barack Obama never apologized for. I'm saying he only apologized because he Western doctors, okay? And if you come in here in this situation, if you come in here and you tell me like, nah, it had nothing to do with white people, lol, then yeah, you are ignorant of the facts. And it shouldn't hurt your feelings that you are not knowledgeable. The more you know, the more you realize that you don't know. You're so wrong, it's ridiculous. You're so left, you're actually on the right, fully aware. Bro thinks he knows everything.
This guy must have got a gifted sub. There's no way he paid for this.
He did. And he did that, and now he won't see the top of the hour ad break, which is coming in the middle of the hour because I forgot to run it. And there are plenty of others like him, but it's all good. At the end of the day, it is what it is. Admitting you misfired and showed military incompetence is
I don't
only
think you
deployed
clicked the
when white
button.
people are the collateral. I am going to in a second. They would never admit to military incompetence that when innocent black and brown civilians are impacted. Yes. By the way, ironically, another incident occurred with the World Central Kitchen Aid. Israel never apologized for 200 humanitarian aid workers before the World Central Kitchen Aid workers were 200. Why? Because those humanitarian aid workers were brown. They were Arab. They were Lebanese. They were Palestinian. Okay? They only apologized for it because World Central Kitchen Aid workers were, and they were Canadian and Australian and British. Okay? The entire purpose of why these organizations like Doctors Without Borders exist is because everybody knows that America is going to be at least a little bit more careful if there's white people there, okay? That these agencies are going to be a little bit more careful with their targeting when there's valuable people there, white people, okay? That's literally the entire purpose of Doctors Without Borders. That is literally the entire purpose of aid groups like this. That is the whole purpose. And they will tell you that, by the way, in their mission statement. It's so funny that people just still try to deny the like abject reality. There's a Polish guy there too, yeah. Worth noting that Republicans at the time said Obama was weak for apologizing for the U.S. on the world stage for doing war. Yeah. 75% of aid workers this year were literally by Israel. World Humanitarian Day 2024, with number of aid workers reaching record high, UN and partners demand those in power, #Act for Humanity. Outrageously high number of humanitarian aid workers with 280 aid workers in 33 countries last year. 2023 marked the deadliest year on the record for global humanitarian community. The outrageously high number represents a 137% increase compared to 2022, when 118 aid workers were. 2024 may be on track for an even deadlier outcome. More than half of the 2023s were recorded in the first 3 months, October to December, of the hostilities in Gaza, mostly a result of good guys. Israel deliberately targets and assassinates journalists. Israel has the overwhelming majority of journalists in conflict throughout history at this point in Gaza alone. And the same goes for humanitarian aid workers that are ultimately they get to whoever they want. And you can't say a damn thing about it, because if you do say a damn thing about it, you're anti-Semitic. Shut up. That's it. Hasan doesn't often accept he might be wrong. I don't think he's wrong in this instance, but that's not exactly relevant. That's not correct. I do accept when I'm wrong. Like when I said Russia will never invade Ukraine, and ain't nobody ever let me live that down. Okay. So you're wrong. Ironically, I'll give you examples.
They did.
Another thing that I was wrong about, for example, was, dude, I was thinking about this the other day. I was wrong when I said I don't think the Republicans will actually take away abortion rights, because that would be an unimaginably stupid thing for them to do so, because they would suffer political penalties. I said this years ago, okay?